everyone. My name is Michael Brooks. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Sullivan County Legislature. And welcome to today's winter edition of Let's Talk Sullivan. It's been a while since we last gotten together. Last time we got together was before the new year. So I'd like to wish everybody it's a belated new year. With us today is our County Chairman, Robert Doherty.
Hi, Michael.
And we have Heather Brown, our Sustainability Coordinator. We're going to start today with a conversation about composting. Could you explain the composting initiative that we're looking to undertake in the county?
Thank you, Mike. Last Thursday, the Sullivan County Legislature passed a resolution establishing a policy to proceed with the development of a countywide composting initiative. And we thank the legislature and the leadership of Chairman Doherty for this initiative. Composting is a very exciting opportunity for the county because it not only promises to produce environmental benefits, but economic benefits to our constituents and taxpayers as well. And I would like to just bring you through a couple of those benefits that we anticipate as a result of the development of this program. Development of a commercial composting facility is the ultimate goal of this initiative, and we are excited to be bringing local infrastructure to the county that will be able to process local waste and handle a local problem as opposed to currently exporting our waste to Seneca Meadows in upstate New York. We pay $80 for every ton that we export in waste out of this county, and quite frankly, that is a waste, no pun intended. So we have commissioned a organic waste management plan with funding received through our Climate Smart Communities program. This initiative has been headed up by the Division of Solid Waste, the Department of Solid Waste within the Division of Public Works under Ed McAndrew, our commissioner. And they have undertaken the effort to evaluate our waste stream and to identify potential programs moving forward to address this properly. It turns out that approximately 30% of our waste stream is in fact compostable organic material, and that is money that is being spent to send that waste upstate that we simply do not have to continue to pay if we develop a proper program. If we assume that 80,000 tons of waste is disposed of in our solid waste facilities each year, and we consider what 30% of that is, that's 24,000 tons of potentially organic, compostable organic material that we were sending out of the county. This represents a massive opportunity to not only avoid the $80 per ton tipping fee, but to also establish new streams of revenue as well. If we're able to divert just a portion of that 24,000 tons, even a small percentage at 4,000 tons, which represents approximately 1/6 of our organic waste stream, that would represent an avoided cost savings of $320,000 at $80 per ton. And that's only talking about the avoided tipping fees. That does not account for any of the potential revenue that we can establish through other streams, such as the acceptance and processing of yard waste, which will be a required component of this operation to make the composting process functional, as well as the potential for sales of a finished organic composting material that can then be placed onto soils around Sullivan County and around the region that will also provide some environmental benefits. So this is a really exciting opportunity to not only avoid costs, but to also establish new revenue streams for Sullivan County. Solid waste has been a challenge for the county to solve for many years, and we've been exporting our waste for over a decade at this point in time, and this is a step in the right direction in which we are actually establishing a local solution to a local problem, and I think that that's a very important fact to take from this. It's not something that we're going to be able to develop in a day, a month, a year, but this is something that we are going to be able to build together. We're going to have a very robust education outreach process with this program, and we're hopeful that our Sullivan County residents will embrace it the same way that this legislature has. Environmentally, this is a fantastic win. Composting is a huge piece of the state's Climate Smart Communities program. Sullivan County is a bronze certified Climate Smart community, as are the towns of Bethel and Tustin, and composting is a central kind of component of that program as well. And there's a reason for that. Because for every ton that we are not sending upstate, we are not putting a truck on the road that is in turn traveling 347 miles round trip and burning fuel and thus emitting those emissions. We are also creating what's known as a carbon sink, in which this compost is actually fixing carbon in place as opposed to rotting in a landfill. That carbon material is now being placed into soils. It is fixing the soils, it is improving the soils, and is also managing to stabilize soils and prevent erosion. So there's a vast amount of environmental benefits that come as a result of not just generating the compost, but also utilizing the compost on our local soils. Every year, the company that we contract with to export our waste materials travels hundreds of thousands of miles on local and state highway infrastructure and burns tens of thousands of gallons of fuels and emits literally tens of thousands of tons of CO2 emissions into the air. Every time that we take a ton of waste out of the stream that is going on those roads, we are in fact improving our air quality. We are making steps towards our Climate Smart Communities commitment. We are also saving residents of Sullivan County the money that is associated with that transport. So overall, we are extremely excited about this program. I do thank the legislature for being so supportive of this initiative. This will only further our efforts in making Sullivan County a much more sustainable place from both an environmental and an economic standpoint to live.
And thank you, Heather. It is definitely an exciting initiative that we're about ready to undertake. And I'm going to throw it right now over to our chairman for some additional comments on composting. Robert?
Thank you, Mike and Heather. I really appreciate everything you had to say today, Heather. I'm going to be a little bit more bold than Heather. I think that 70% of the 30%, which is 16,800 tons, comes from institutions such as restaurants, schools, the casino, and places like that. So I think that we can get closer to that 70% very quickly. Businesses are going to be motivated to do so. It reduces their trash bill and it reduces their operating costs. So I think we can quickly get to over $1 million in savings. It's something that is not just economically smart. It's good for the environment. In the county that you bond in for roads, this is how you get out of bonding for roads, is by doing smart things that is also good for you. And so again, I want to thank Heather for coming in and continue the great job that she's doing.
Okay, now moving on, next subject that we want to talk a little bit about is the vaccination program concerning COVID-19. Rob, share with us the current stats where we stand in Sullivan County.
Sure thing, Mike. I know a lot of people are clamoring, for the vaccine. Unfortunately, there's been a delay in getting vaccines. It's not just a Sullivan County issue, it's a statewide issue. Unfortunately, there was some severe weather. But the good news is I think that we've turned the corner on the weather issue, and I think there'll be a steady supply going forward. Johnson & Johnson should be getting approved later on this week or early next week to have another company in the mix providing the vaccine. Just some quick stats. Statewide, 7.1% of the people are vaccinated. In Orange County, 8.5% of the people are vaccinated. And in Sullivan County, 9.8% of the people are vaccinated. So I know sometimes people get upset, oh, we're only getting 200 shots. But if you go by our population, we're right in line with the rest of the state. In fact, we're doing better than most of the state. You look at a county like Dutchess County, when they're getting 600 shots when we're getting 200 shots. They're 3.8 times larger than us. So we are on a good track. Nancy McGraw is doing a good job. Rick Sauer's doing a good job, and we're moving forward. We have a clinic this coming Thursday at the college. And then we'll be having clinics, as long as the supplies hold out, and we're confident that they're going to. Public Health Director Nancy McGraw does a weekly update. I believe Dan's going to put the name right here on the screen, and you can get updates, every week. You can go to our county website and look at that also. And we are moving forward. We anticipate a steady stream of vaccines going forward.
And there's good news coming out of just the reporting as far as COVID goes around the nation, that as we move forward with vaccinations, and unfortunately folks who have contracted COVID-19, but we're getting to a better place, and it's a little patience is needed, but we're getting there. And as you can tell by Rob's stats, that Sullivan County is right in line with the rest of the state, if not just slightly better. So that's all good. That's all positive. Okay, next up on our discussion is the Adult Care Center at Sunset Lake. It's one of the largest decisions that I think the Sullivan County Legislature as a body has undertaken in its history. I say that only because the effect on the county's budget is roughly 19 million or 8%. So there's a lot of thought put into it. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion attached to the subject, but we are, at the end of the day, we're very happy to have picked Infinite Care as the managing company to run the operations there going forward. So I'd like to have Rob just mention a little bit about the Care Center, an update on that. So Rob?
Sure, thank you, Mike, I appreciate it. Some of the things about the Care Center, when we started this process on July 2nd, if I told you that it was going to get moved into an LDC on an 8-1 vote, and then we were going to pick the operator on a 7-2 vote, I don't think anyone would have believed me when I said that. But that's exactly what happened. While there is healthy debate while the process is going on, that healthy debate is necessary to get to the final conclusion. And everyone, stakes out their own positions. But it's through the healthy debate that we come to a consensus. And I would say an 8-1 consensus is consensus. And I would say a 7-2 vote is as close to consensus as you're gonna get. One of our members, Mr. Conklin's mother, is in one of the competitors that were vying for the ability to win the contract. And so he sided with them. I'm confident that if that did not happen, he would have sided, and it would have been an 8-1 vote again. Which is very important. The debate process, while sometimes ugly, is absolutely necessary. As far as the Care Center, the LDC has had their initial talks with Infinite Care. They're setting up the structure for the lease. They have 3 meetings set up in the next month. I'm confident that they will move quickly towards a lease, and hopefully by June 1st there will be a lease in place and we can move forward. The other thing I'm very happy about is that I've stated from the very beginning, my 3 goals was to improve care, reduce the burden on taxpayers, and make sure the workers are protected. And I think that we have achieved every one of those goals. And again, sometimes the process gets a little messy, but it's the final conclusion that matters for the people of Sullivan.
Thank you, Rob. In a related vein, our next topic of conversation is the Certified Home Health Agency. Rob, could you give us an update on that?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. As part of the negotiations and as part of the banter that was going back and forth amongst legislators, we were talking about how do Sullivan County residents, get into beds if this goes to a private operator. And one of the suggestions that was brought up on August 13th was to include the CHA. And so we had taken a 37-minute break. We then added the language to add the CHA. But we really hadn't done all of our homework on the CHA as of yet. So we voted on it. I asked everyone if they understood it. They all said yes. I read it to them. We voted on it. It passed 8-1. Then, as we had time before the final vote of picking the operator, I spoke to the director of the CHA, Karen Holden, on several occasions, and she advocated strongly, to keep it as a county organization. And so, being the open-minded person I am, I was more than happy to have these conversations. I also spoke to some nurses in the CHA who have been there for 30-plus years, and we found that that was a mistake. And if you can't admit when you make a mistake, you you shouldn't be in this business. So we went back and we took it out and we passed a resolution because we have total confidence in Karen Holden to run the job properly. It's not something that's going to make the county money, but just like paving roads and the sheriff's department, it's something that's absolutely necessary for the health and the care of the residents of Sullivan.
And it's worth mentioning that that a thanks needs to be extended to the nurses for their kind statement after it was announced that Infinite Care will be taking over the management of Sunset Lake. Next up is the Human Rights Commission. Rob, could you speak to that and some of the news of how we're going to restructure that commission?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mike. Thank you so much. So we've hired a new executive director for the Human Rights Commission, and she'll be joining us today, as a matter of fact, and her name is Adrienne Jensen. And we just want to welcome Adrienne aboard, and we look forward to working with you. So now, unfortunately, the last legislature wasn't able to recommission the Human Rights Commission, but after COVID, and I'm sorry for the long delay because we could have really used them during some of the events that happened over the spring and summer of this year. They would have been an ideal component to help stem some of those issues. And we're going to reconstitute it. And it's going to look a little bit different. There's going to be 9 board members. And each legislator gets to pick one from their district. We feel that by doing that, you have a better representation of the county. And moving forward, that's exactly what we want. We want a better representation of the county on this board. We feel that they do great work already, and that then there could be a better outreach throughout the whole county, not just focused on the eastern side of the county.
Thank you, Rob. And I know as every other legislator, looks forward to working with this commission once it's fully sat. Next up is the Millennium Tax Settlement. And Rob, can you explain what happened with that settlement?
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. So the compressor station, which is in the town of Highland, which is in my district, was built 2 years ago. The town assessor assessed it at $88 million, which is the correct assessment using the information that she was given. She did a fabulous job in the assessment. The people who own the compressor station, the Millennium Pipeline folks, they wanted to reduce it to $35 million, which obviously is not a fair assessment. So we got together with the town of Highland and the school district of Eldred, and all 3 of us got together and fought the assessment, as a team, which is very beneficial when you stick together and you fight these things as a team. Not one entity trying to get the best deal for themselves, but everyone stuck together, which was very beneficial. So it wound up being, we agreed on a $62 million assessment. We also agreed on which is a fair assessment for it, because in something like that, it's the construction cost minus the depreciation. So that's a fair assessment. Some of the benefits that we got out of this, we got a 5-year deal, so the town and the schools can continue to budget off of that. It's not a constant fight on a yearly basis. One of the major benefits was that we didn't have to pay any money back. This is how some towns get bankrupted, by having to go back and then pay out $1 million in past taxes that were collected. This is how towns and school districts get in a lot of trouble, and they can't afford it, and then taxes go up by 25%, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So we were able to get an assessment of $62 million on a 5-year deal and not have to pay any money back. This was a very beneficial deal for everyone. We all worked together, we all worked hard, we all agreed on the deal, and I think that it's a prime example of working together with your local municipalities and your local school districts to do what's best for the taxpayer of your school districts, towns, and county.
Thank you, Rob. Next up is the Sullivan County Visitors Association. Rob, can you give us an update on where that stands right now?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I believe we wrapped up negotiations last week. For the county, it was myself, Legislator Joseph Perillo, and Legislator George Conklin was on our negotiating team, and they had on their negotiating team Sims Foster, their chairman, Paul Carlucci from the Villa Roma, and Brian Rock from the town of Liberty. We had some spirited debate, and that's what happens in negotiations, but we were able to come to a agreement that I think benefits them and benefits us. So we agreed on a $1.1 million floor, so they'll never get less than $1.1 million, which can fuel their current budget. And then there's, as they do better, they get more and more money. So at $3 million, they then get 50% of the pool, and at $3.5 million, they get 60% of the pool. So just so we're clear on what the pool is the 5% bed tax money. So that comes from anyone that sleeps in a short-term rental, such as a hotel room, an Airbnb, or any of those type of platforms. That goes into a tax that is collected, and then we share that amongst with the SCVA, and the county gets to keep a cut of that for the collection of that money, and then we as a county now get to create other events, build trails, and make the county more attractive to guests to come up here.
And this past year, pre-COVID, what was the bed tax that was taken in?
Okay, so it was the largest amount ever at $2.1 million.
Okay, and I think we're optimistic in feeling that that number will increase going forward, especially, obviously, we get past COVID-19.
Sure, those numbers, the last 3 years in a row, the Airbnb, specifically Airbnb, their numbers have doubled 3 years in a row. The addition of the casino, which was over $500,000, and then the addition of the water park that hasn't run a full year as of yet, they were another $500,000 plus. So the future is bright. You have the project in Highland opening up. Mr. Foster's opening up a new project. Mr. Patel's opening a project behind the McDonald's in Monticello and Thompson. So there are more rooms coming on board, and there's I think there's mountains of opportunity in Sullivan County.
Now, whether we're talking about composting, as was today's main conversation with Heather and Rob, or the broadband project we're taking on, the renegotiating of the Sullivan Visitors Association contract, refiguring the Human Rights Commission, all of these initiatives and all the debate is so important for us as a legislative body going forward, because we truly want to. We look out at Sullivan County. We're very optimistic on where Sullivan County's future lies. And by making some of these decisions, some of them are very tough, and some of them take a while. As an example, obviously, of the Care Center. But we fully believe by doing these things, Sullivan County is going to be in a much stronger position when we come out of COVID. And there's a lot to look forward to. It's a time to rethink about Sullivan County, reallocate the resources, and to spend them more wisely. And I think the composting is a great example of that.
Absolutely, Mike.
And there's other things coming, so stay tuned. But it's very excited to be part of a legislature that is tackling these issues. Some of them, like I said, are very, they stir up a lot of emotion in folks, but the status quo is not where we want to be. The time is now to change some things and control, if you will, our own destiny. And being able and having the leadership of this board and the county manager's office to look at things, what can we change? Just because something was in place for a while doesn't mean it has to stay there forever. Doesn't necessarily mean you throw it out. Maybe you got to modify it. But all things are on the table, and that's how we've been approaching this legislative term. So I look forward to the next, to this year and beyond. And we've covered topics today. The one thing I did want to do is just talk about, we've had, I call it a good old-fashioned winter, at least the last few weeks have been. And even though it's their job and they do a very good job at it, is all the county employees, and there's a whole host of them that have to come out and clear the roads, our deputies and the like, that have to report for duty to do the job that we entrust them to do. And thank you for what you do. It is your job, we know that, but you do a very good job at it, and we appreciate it. So thank you. And I think with that being said, it's this is our first meeting of the of 2021. We look forward to more of these and informing you on what the legislature is doing. So for now, bye.